So, Thelma, thank you for coming on. We've only to the show. I know. Sorry, you can't make it live on the show. But the thing is, being a teacher for 34 years, you must have read quite a few books. Is there a book or two that you could recommend for people watching that you'd like to speak about?
Well, when you mentioned this, have you got a book? I thought, oh, it's such a dilemma. It's like when somebody asks you what your favorite music or song is. I just went into a complete flat, really, because you probably like yourself, I have read loads of books, and what I tend to do, I've got two I'm thinking of just to mention, because I tend to keep a fiction and non-fiction book on the go at the same time, and often, because I'm a political nerd, often the non-fiction is about politics or a politician, so the one I do want to recommend is this huge tome here, Sylvia Pankhurst, and it's called Natural Born Rebel, by Rachel Holmes. And what was funny, my husband bought me this for my birthday this time last year, and it took me a while to read because you can see how it was. Yeah. But he put an inscription inside because Sylvia was born in Manchester, so to another Mancunian rebel, he put, because I was born in Manchester, my family are from Manchester, why I've chosen this, and it is worth, it's a huge book, but this biography by Rachel Holmes of Sylvia, for me, she is an unsung political hero, in terms of she's the one in the family. That this book is so great because it's not just about the suffragette movement and her bravery and courage, but it's also about her family, because you'll know about the suffragettes. Emmeline Pankhurst is always the one that is celebrated, and then Christabel and Adela, her two sisters, tended to have the higher profile. But actually, Sylvia was the most radical one, and she was the one that was force-fed more than any other suffragette. She didn't tend to get the big publicity, but she was, in my opinion, the bravest. She suffered torture, she suffered terrible things. And this book explores the family background and the family dynamics, because she had a really tough time. And I would say, even though some people would be outraged at this, but I think Emmeline Pankhurst was a bit of a snob, actually. And I think she was, if you read this story about how she was with her daughter, when Sylvia had a child out of wedlock, as they called it then, to an Italian communist. And her mother wouldn't receive her, when she'd had the baby, her mother wouldn't have, obviously they'd had political disagreements, and there had been a rift between her mother and sisters in the way forward. But then when she'd had the child, from just a emotional connection and that love between mother and daughter, she wouldn't receive her because she saw it as her having shamed the family. And also it goes into her education. When they were homeschooled at first, she then went on to Manchester Girls' Grammar, but because they'd been homeschooled and the whole family, her father, of course, a well-known local politician, that was steeped in, politics and different high-profile politicians, Keir Hardie coming to the home, etc. Amazing life she had. But because they were kind of different and seen as different, when they did go to mainstream school, there was a lot of bullying going on. So what's interesting about it is not just how heroic she was and how she campaigned constantly for votes for women, but also for an equal society. And then later in life in Ethiopia, and honoured by Haile Selassie. So just an incredible story of an incredibly brave woman who I don't think has been honoured enough. And the higher profile to Emmeline, who was the more respectable, if you like, right, and middle class kind of female suffragette figure. So I'd certainly recommend that one.
Great.
And another one was when I was doing my A-levels, and this is Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms, which I don't know if you've ever read, but I think Ernest Hemingway is such a flawed character, I know, but I think Ernest Hemingway was an absolutely brilliant writer. And I often think some of the best novelists start as journalists, and he was obviously a very successful journalist before he began to write, and this was his first bestseller, but set in the First World War, semi-autobiographical, but it's a wonderful story of he was in the ambulance corps and fell in love with an English nurse, and it's a love story, but with the backdrop of war and getting badly wounded, and escaping to a neutral country, and it's tragic, but just such a wonderful story and so brilliantly written, so I recommend that. And as I say, Hemingway, a very flawed character, but absolutely brilliant at describing love and loss and bereavement and all of those things. Those are the two that I'd recommend. And I'm just about to start, and I should have read it before this, A Party with Socialists in It, which I don't know if you've seen that one, by Simon Hanna. And some people I know very, very well, comrades and former colleagues, would say to me, Thelma, if you read this book, you'll see that the left there's always been difficulties with the left in Labour, and what's happening now is no different. That's why you shouldn't leave. So I've started reading some of that, and that's one I think I'd recommend for those of us on the left, who maybe have stayed in Labour or left Labour.
Wow.
Yeah, I could
Three books.
Well, yeah, I could carry on of a list of all my
favourites. It was going to be one, but three's better than one.
I could come every week and talk about books, Crispin.
Well, maybe get you on again.
I'd love that. Yeah.